moment.
All right, I'll call in the absence
There
of
you
the
go.
council
You're live
president.
now.
In the absence of the council president, vice president will call the meeting to order for the council of the whole, June 29th, 2020. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Member Stroya?
Here.
Member Shretta?
Here.
Vice President Revolt?
Here.
Member Fonte?
Here.
Member Warren?
Here.
Member Foltz?
Here.
And President Peters is absent.
May I have a
Motion
motion to
excused.
excuse?
Motion excused, Member President Peters.
Second, Waring.
Sorry.
Seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Very good. Well, hopefully he will join us in progress. First item tonight is Street and Alley. Dominic?
Yes. Do we have to read it or anything, or can I just talk about it?
We're just talking about it tonight.
Okay. So this is basically the East Maple project. It's about a $2 million project, which includes the road, the bridge, and everything. So OmniPro LLC would be the construction management services, because since it's a government grant and all the money involved, they got to comply to all the regulations, all USA Steel. There's a lot of accounting into this with all the products. So with all the money that we'll be able to get with all the grants and everything, our allocation will be roughly, if we get the applied grant that we did, municipal road funding, we might have about $75,000 out of the $2 million project out of our coffers. This is to help manage the project in an efficient way, and it should kick off July, August, this in the next month or two. And Rob, Pat, feel free to chime in if you have any more details to add.
Yeah, I think there's, this is Patrick. I think there's some internal discussions that have been going on that some of the procedures surrounding this, that we're not all of the same opinion. So I want to, we're going to have a discussion about that. But Rob, can you tell us what is it that these folks do?
Yes, absolutely, Patrick.
Or what is it that needs to be done that these folks can do?
Right. What it is with the federally, and Chairman Fonte touched on it, with the federal funds, there's a lot more tracking that needs to be done above and beyond that our staff can do. You have your construction management, your construction inspection, which is what myself and my department do, but they're going to handle it for this job. There's so much more. There's materials tracking. An example is every nut and bolt has to be tracked. We can't have any foreign steel. It has to be American made. So they literally have to track down to the nut and bolt level, every
Wow.
material. It's quite the chore. Materials testing. Every day the concrete trucks have to have the cylinders made and harden those and then break them every few days till you have that ultimate 28-day strength. And we don't have the abilities nor the certifications to do that. They'll handle that for us. Prevailing wage interviews. This is federal money, so we have the Davis-Bacon federal wage. So they got to go out there and interview the contractor and all the subs. Also the DBE subs, the disadvantaged business enterprises. We've got an 8% goal. They have to track that, as well as the additional prevailing wage discussions with the disadvantaged business enterprises. They have to coordinate all ODOT inspections. They show up periodically unannounced, so they have to be prepared for that. Then a ream of federal closeout documentation. It's just a laundry list of tasks that typically it's about 10% of construction. And we had estimated it at 185. I got their first iteration today at 179,000. So when I'm putting the agenda together, I was right there. So
Right.
a lot of tasks, and the Fed recognizes that, so they help us, and our grant monies can be used towards that. So,
Hey, Rob, that was a good explanation. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Rob, we have done other federal projects in the city's history. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
Have we had to do these types of services on those projects as well?
On every one. Since I've been here, we did it on South Main Street paving a couple years ago, but it was under 50,000, so we just handled it, through administration with a purchase order. We did it on West Maple, just right out, by St. Paul's parking lot by the old engineer's office. Again, that was under 50. We're literally doing it as we speak on Portage. That's a $48,000 contract. But since I've been here, this is the first one that's exceeded 50.
And is that because it's based on a certain percentage roughly of what the total project cost is?
Exactly. Rule of thumb, it's roughly 10% of your construction cost, and not so much on a paving, because a lot of that work is done in 3 or 4 days, and an inspector couldn't spend that much. But for a general construction, it's not a simple repave. Yes, the rule of thumb is about 10%.
And when is this project supposed to start?
Well, we've got the contract documents are actually executed today. So the next step is to have a pre-construction meeting and find out Central Allied, our low bidder, schedule. I mean, they're basically could start in a week or two if they wished. They haven't shared, and I've asked a couple times, are we a month out? What's your other workload? We could be started, I hope, within a month, but I don't have a date yet.
All right, and these folks have to be part of that from before it starts. Is that correct?
The next step is once they're on board, they run the pre-construction meeting and all ODOT's criteria, right down the project bulletin board and everything else they have to track. So yes, they would be starting when construction starts.
All right, now, and when you sent this legislative request over to me and I signed it and sent it on, did this include an emergency provision?
Yes, it originally had an emergency if it was permitted. Yes, I would really like to see that.
I'm of the understanding just today that Tim, you have a different take on that. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to jump in here.
Sure. So late last week, I spoke with Rob about this section, and that this was new, where in our history we've not had this situation where there's an emergency clause proposed, because the statute states that this type of program does not apply, and it gives a couple provisions, and one of those states that when the public authority determines in writing that there's an emergency required, and including but not limited to projects requiring multiple contracts as part of a program requiring a large number of design professional firms. It appears that the statute itself may not be used if you're going to tie it to an emergency clause.
Hey, Tim, this is Daryl. I'm looking at the statute now, and I guess I'm going to ask Rob this question first. If I understand this, OmniPro is not engaged in the design work, correct?
Absolutely. A firm called Arcadis did the design work.
Okay, so
another firm that the county had on the bridge, but you're correct.
Okay, so I'm looking at the stat, and this goes back to my question, Tim, to you, is that the statute makes specific reference to design services on design build, but it apparently does not reference contract management. Two very different functions. Is contract management wrapped into 153.73 and I missed it? Again, I'm looking at the statute and I think I know what it applies to, but I think this is outside the statute.
Well, I believe within this section from 6.5 to 7.3, it opens up some other areas. And I'm trying to rationalize where just the design management for the necessity of a would be the one that would be limited.
Yeah, member Revolt, is what you just said is true. My 25 years on the private side, you know, I was awarded design work and awarded construction management inspection contracts just like this. But if you did the design, your ODOT would not allow you to even consider doing the construction management, construction.
Right. They're two separate important functions, check and balance.
Mm-hmm. Right, just exactly that reason, because if you'd made a mistake in the design, you could cover it. Yep.
I think the issue here is what we're looking at is, and this goes to Pat's question, is one of timing. And that is, if we pursue this through the normal process without an emergency, we can string together 3 meetings pretty quick, or 2 other meetings, 2 votes, but we're still not going to be effective for at least 30 days. Whereas if we're allowed to insert an emergency clause and it's effective immediately, and we can tell Omnipro to get started.
Well, is there any
they can
problem?
begin to hold their meetings at 6.
Hey, Daryl, is there a reason why we can't just pull the trigger? Is it convoluted with? Does it look like they're not involved in the design side of it, right? So
that's correct.
Then they should not. That should not apply to them in this case, right?
That's my question. I don't see anything that requires construction management to be treated the same as design build. The statute references design build. It does not reference construction management. Ergo,
consulting. Yeah.
We should be able to do this on emergency. Can we? That's my question. I think we can.
Well, if that's what you're saying, and they're not involved in the design, I would think we should be able to move this along pretty timely. Because, like, you want to take advantage of the weather, get everybody busy, and get them going. Because they're going to tie it up for a while.
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Fonte or Mr. Graham?
Well, we have another committee of the whole next Monday. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. That's what I understand.
All right, and then we have a regular meeting on the 13th. So, do we need more time to look at this and come back with this next week with another committee meeting and have a week to kind of sort it out?
That sounds good to me.
I guess the thing of it is, Pat, I would like to do this with all deference to Jeff, who's not here, is I'd like to get this thing going. Pardon?
He's joining, I think.
He just called in.
I am up, guys. Can you hear me?
Hi, Jeff.
You can, and I am going to surrender the microphone.
Well, get him up to date. Get him up to date. Daryl, get him up to date first.
All right, we've got Jeff on item 1. We have a question. The statute says that on design build projects, you can't award the contract on emergency, specifically prohibited. However, what we're doing here is we're awarding a construction management contract, very different. So the question is, can we do this on emergency? I'm kind of arguing that we can, but I think the question, should we take a deeper dive over the next week?
Yeah, because to me it looks like a professional services contract, and whether or not
correct
this is interpreted.
Well,
as
can we put it on
service.
and table it? Can we put it on so we don't waste the time, and then we can table it?
Yeah, I think we should put it on. And
and
this is Dominic. I think we should put it on. Tim, that'll give you a few days just to double check to make sure we're compliant.
Well, it's not on until July 13th.
But we're going to have a special next week, right?
I thought next week we're doing.
We weren't planning on a special next week. We're planning on committee of the whole next week.
Okay.
2 in a row.
All right.
Could we do a special after the meeting of the whole?
okay with
You
that.
can do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Why don't we do the meeting of the whole, give Tim a chance to research and make sure we're compliant, and then we have a special meeting right after that, and then we pass out an emergency if in fact that's if everything it jives correctly.
All right. Well, I guess I don't see where we would need to meet on July 13th then. What's going to be on the agenda for July 13th?
Well, can't we do it just next week? Knock it both out next week.
Yeah.
We have I know, but we have 2 items on the agenda tonight. All right.
We got to vote on them next week on a regular meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, you may need the 13th for a third and final vote, Pat, if
Yeah,
we got to do emergency.
if we need it, we'll have it, and we'll come back anytime. You know that.
Yeah, we're flexible. We can zoom in anytime.
all right, that's what we'll do then, Pat. I'll defer to Tim, let him do some research on this, but yeah, if we have to add another meeting, that's what we'll do.
Thank you, gentlemen, ladies.
Okay. Okay, was that the only question on one then?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, so we're gonna move forward on that one. Next up, finance property, Chairwoman Warren.
Yes, these are just supplemental appropriations. We have a capital improvement for land acquisition. They're about $962,000, and then the debt issue cost about $13,000 for a total of $975,000. Gina, any comments or?
These will be the remaining part of the, the tax anticipation. Yeah, it's the Kmart property. And we originally did 3.425 million. This is the remainder, 975,000 that we're selling on the market to close on July 8th.
Gina, we're keeping you busy.
Indeed.
Any other questions?
All right. Emergency as well.
Yep.
Okay.
Hey, Jeff.
Yes, Pat.
Since looks like we're done with our official agenda, and before you go on to maybe number 3, I'd like to exercise, if possible, the privilege that council has granted to me in the past to make a committee report on a committee of the whole night, or make a report on a committee of the whole night.
Yeah. I'll motion for the administrator to do that from Fultz.
I'll second. Warren?
Revolt seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
All right, motion carried. Patrick, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so I want to just take a few minutes to bring everyone up to speed, not just here at the dais, but anybody that might be listening in, concerning the park expansion project, Bitzer Park, and all the discussion around trees at Bitzer. So I certainly appreciate everybody in the community that is so interested in the outcome here. We certainly welcome community engagement in all the issues that we do. And we want to assure not just the council, and I know you know this, but assure the community at large that these decisions that we've made or trying to make, are not something that we've entered into a willy-nilly at a whim. These are things that have gone through great thought process. So I want to let you know what I've done since our last meetings. And I should say that, although I think the method to my process of moving forward, you may not have been fully articulated by myself. I certainly take ownership of that and responsible. And I apologize to anyone if I did not make this clear. But what I have found is that in a number of projects, one of the things that makes it difficult to move forward is the process of building consensus. That doesn't mean we don't want to build consensus. We certainly do. But there are certain time tables involved in this project that my fear was, while we were going to be building a consensus around, trying to save as many trees as possible, that we wouldn't be able to get our bid documents out. And the grants that we had received from the state have a certain timeline on them. And if we don't spend the monies that we were granted by a certain timeline, then the monies are forfeited. They stay in Columbus, and it greatly affects our ability to get future monies from them. You can imagine all the requests that state senators and state legislators get for funding, and they have to say no to. And when a community has funds and sits on the funds and never uses the funds, that puts them in a very difficult spot, and it puts us in a difficult spot trying to get funds from them in the future when we say we need them and then we don't spend them. So, we've gotten this grant from the state, $750,000 to move forward, and through a whole variety of things, initially around trying to build consensus on this project, we have had difficulty moving forward. So we've had different architects involved that we were not happy with the progress that was being made. We reorganized and did an RFQ and ended up with where we're at today, and finally developing a plan and moving it forward. So in getting the bid documents prepared, I knew that when it came to decisions on the trees, that was going to be made by the city in its deliberative process that we go through. It wasn't going to be part of the contract that is going to be awarded for this project. So for that purpose, I felt that it was okay to get that out for bid. Since that's not going to be a part of what we're doing, let's figure out what we can do regarding the trees. So to that effect, we've spent a number of meetings in the park with members of council, going over tree by tree and where we are. So last Friday, then, as an additional step, I did invite two other individuals outside of city government who have a lot of dealings with trees, a lot of expertise on trees, who sit on tree commissions and could just give us an outside view of what they're looking at. And, perhaps because I sit across from Bitzer Park and look out my office window and have for the last 3 years, and I can see the park and see the trees, I have a bit more view of what the true nature of the trees are there versus some that may have never spent any time in the park but still want to preserve our trees. And we certainly applaud that effort. So when we did that on Friday afternoon, myself, these outside individuals, Brian Hill, Catherine Farina, we went tree by tree and allowed them to tell us, what they thought. And then today, I met with our park and rec chairman, Doug Foltz, over there as well, to review all of this together. And so we've come to a better understanding of where we are with this. And Doug, do you want to jump in at this point, or do you want me to keep talking?
No, sure, I'll jump in. Okay. I think, and really this is the way government should work. Our residents have spoken. They want us to take another look at this, or a full look at this, see what we could do to protect some of the mature trees. Obviously, when you do any capital project, and it's a wonderful capital project, Bitzer, I think everybody's 100% behind what we're going to do as far as the infrastructure. It's a matter of what we can do to save some of these mature trees. So I applaud the residents for bringing that to our attention, signing petitions, being very sensitive to keeping mature trees in our community. I mean, that's a must when you can do it. So Pat and Kathy and I looked at these trees. I think we might modify some of the construction there, but I think the main reason we were doing this is see what we could save and what had to go. We do have a number of distressed trees there, but I think all said and done, Pat, and I just wrote some quick notes. I think we're looking to save 3 oak trees on East Maple, 1 oak tree on South Main, buckeye tree, 2 locust trees, and at least 1 maple. So I don't remember exactly, out of the 18 or 19 hardwood trees, not decorative trees, not crab apples, not pine trees. Some of those, the pines all have to go. they're just distressed and they're not long as far as their tree life is concerned. We're looking to save 8 or 9 hardwood trees, and I think that's a doable project. I think we save some tree canopy. We also remove some distressed trees that'll give some of our more mature trees a root structure to expand into and to have a better chance to survive. So I think off the cuff, it was a very productive meeting. I think our residents should be happy that government's working towards their interests and just for the interests of just saving mature trees overall. Obviously, we can't save every one of them. You can see some of them are distressed that need to be taken down. But I think if we can save 8 or 9, I think, Pat, that's kind of where we're at. I'm very pleased with the direction of where we're going, and I think the residents will be too.
Yeah, I think the number was 9.
Okay.
So let's say 8 or 9. I believe it's 9 that we would save. And when Doug says distressed, breaking it down into maybe more layman's terms, some of them, a great deal of them are more than just distressed. They've got interior rot. They have some are showing that perhaps one of the pin oaks over on Maple that is in its end stages was a result of an automobile accident. That one of the experts had indicated and, caused this tree distress that would have shortened its lifespan normally. And to Doug's point, yes, we will modify the project a bit to make this work, to save those 9 trees. And I appreciate Doug taking a real leadership role. We knew that he would. He's that kind of guy. But if anybody else has some questions there. I know Daryl, I think you were over. Mark, we went over. If anybody else wants to chime in, otherwise, I just wanted to update everybody. We think that we have what we need to move forward. We'll save 9 of the large hardwood trees. We'll remodify our plan. We'll work with our architect to come up with that. But the bids will still be due here this week, and we will execute that change to the change order.
Pat, it's Dom. Dom here. Go ahead, Steph.
No, probably I'm just going to say the same thing as you, but I'm thrilled you guys were willing to listen and kind of go look at those. I had gone up on my own, and I wasn't as concerned with the fruit trees, but those hardwoods, they're a big deal, and they do make the center look really nice. So thank you for doing that. And Doug, I appreciate your expertise. You've been doing parks for a long time, and I love what you're doing in the city of Canton. And I just think it shows the flexibility, and thanks for the people for reaching out to us.
Yeah. Hey, Pat, and the mayor and everybody involved. So as a layman, we always want to save the trees, as much as we can, because it takes 25 years to get them looking like that. And it takes forever to get them, I don't have as much, I'm at the 4th quarter, man. I don't have as much time to wait. So I want to see them trees stay. So I think by doing the extra effort like that, it just shows that we're not willy-nilly going about this plan. And it makes sense now that you explained it the way you do. Now I understand, because we don't want to lose the money that was granted to us if we don't act quickly on that. So, but the bottom line is we're going to save 9 trees that weren't going to be saved initially. So that's 9 mature trees. And I would think hopefully the citizens, the 385 people that signed the petition will appreciate that. And especially Joe Blueball, who's leading up, because he is a lover of trees for sure. So thanks again.
Yeah, Patrick, Peter here. Thank you so much for putting the effort in to save some of those mature trees. It's great. Appreciate it. I do have a question though. The comment was made that at the point when we redo the brick walkway and we put the concrete down and lay the brick or the brick inlay after that, there was talk that possibly damaged some of the root. Have we addressed that issue?
Yeah.
Is
So
that how?
thank you. Yeah, thank you for that question. So let's just talk for a few minutes just about the sidewalks on Maple and Main. So on Maple Street, the sidewalk there is 8 foot 6 inches wide, and that is the width that we've been trying to obtain in our redo of the master plan and some of the more modern streetscape designs that we've done up further north. and what we've done around City Hall and over in front of Main Street Grill, we're trying to make this a more walkable community. And so that part was done years ago. Now the bricks that were laid just on the soil, or there may be a thin coat of limestone, crushed limestone down, but not much, and that's why the roots have upended some of the bricks. But that isn't really the case over on Maple. So those trees planted in their original condition anticipated a wide sidewalk there, and the roots, from what we can tell, don't seem to be of a point where if we put the cement down with the brick inlay, that we're going to have a problem on the Maple side of that. Now on the back side of Maple, there is an embankment, and at the two ends of Maple, the embankment tapers down to eventually ground level, and there's a pin oak at each end of that we think will be okay. The pin oaks that are in the middle that have issues that have been marked for, those are the couple that were marked for removal. The embankment on the back side is fairly high. When this is regraded, the park is regraded to make it proper drainage and seeding and all the things that we're doing. It might have interfered with the roots on the backside of those trees anyway, but on the north side where it goes into the sidewalk, we don't think there's a problem. Now, when we switch over to Main Street, though, now is where we start dealing with some issues. So the sidewalk on Main Street is only 5 feet wide, 60 inches. It's not as wide as the one by a long shot. And it brings up a couple things. As far as the stress that the 4 pin oaks on that side have endured, the 3 most northern ones, if you looked at them from across the street, you'd see that they're smaller, stunted, thinner, narrower trunks. And as you work your way from south to north away from the Y, there's very little left, honestly, for those. Why is that? Why are those 3 so different from the 4th one, the one that is the closest to the Y? Well, those trees were all planted at the same time. They should all kind of look the same. Well, the difference is that we did a number of years back, probably 2 decades back. Main Street was widened. It was 5 lanes. It didn't always used to be 5 lanes. And those trees were further from the street. So we believe that when the people that were looking at these trees believe that when Main Street was widened, they encountered the root system of those trees. And the 3 most northern ones more than the one that's by the Y. And that has stunted their growth and has affected them long term. And maybe, 20 years ago, didn't think that it would, but clearly, 20 years later, sure enough. When we did the streetscaping brick project and putting those down, again, they would have encountered roots and they may have damaged those roots in the process. So the largest of those pin oaks, which is the one by the Y, is in the best condition of those 4. It's worth saving. It's one of the ones that Doug was talking about. And its roots are massively exposed right on the edge of that sidewalk. So expanding the sidewalk to make it 8 feet in front of that tree will be probably not possible. So we'll have to narrow it a bit so that we don't disturb any more of the root system there. One of the things that's contributing to the narrowness of the passage in front of it is that there's a street light right in front of that tree. And in fact, there's 2 street lights on that section. And in both instances, you can see where people have walked off of the bricks onto the grass and have worn that out completely by both street lights because it's too narrow. The bricks in front of the street lights narrow to about 30 inches or 3 feet. And it really makes it based on our experience with some issues on Everhard last year, not ADA compliant. Getting a wheelchair around those light posts and staying on the bricks, even if they were level, there would be a problem. And evidence is already that they're walking in the grass anyway. So we're going to propose relocating that street light away from that tree to make sure that it's, if we can't, we know we can't go the full 8 feet there, but if we can go 6 feet and there's no street light in the way, that should be more than ample opportunity to pass there without damaging that tree further. Does that help, Jeff?
Yeah, it's your, those were a few of the questions that I was getting on social media.
Right.
And I think that was the case for all. So I appreciate that detailed, Doug, did you have something?
Yeah, President Peters, one more comment. I appreciate everybody coming together, spending time on this. It's important to, this is the way government should work. Our residents weighed in. I think, and another important thing to consider here is that when you have any park development plan or concept, we weren't creating this with nothing there. I mean, we had these mature trees. We had over probably 25 trees there all together, maybe a little more than 30 when you look at the pines and some of the crab trees. We have a beautiful Veterans Memorial there. We have a history of these large mature trees there. And, we're also going to keep those. If we keep 9 mature trees, we're also winning by planting new trees. They'll have an extended 50, 75-year life. After these, unfortunately, are going to be gone at some point. So that's a great development. When you plant all trees together, and there's something that distresses the trees, whether a tree disease, storm damage, tornado, whatever, just age, you have to rebuild. Now we have the opportunity to keep the mature trees and add some newer trees that'll grow up under the large tree canopies to give us another 50 years of just great tree planting. This is the way we should plan things. Don't throw everything out, save what you can, and look towards the future. So we're doing all of the above, and that's the win for the community.
Great, very good. Anybody?
Thank you, Council, for giving me this opportunity.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. If I see no further regarding support.
Jeff, I can't hear you.
You hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
All right, I'm sorry. I am on my phone. At this time, council is going to move executive session. The topic is for the purpose of discussing with the law director an ongoing legal dispute. Member Soretta, you are going to abstain from this.
Correct.
At this, can I have a roll call vote, a motion second, and a roll call vote to enter into executive session?
Revolt moves for executive session to discuss pending legal matter.
Second, Stroya. Ben, call the roll, please.
Hello.
I'm sorry, who?
I don't know.
Member Foltz, Doug Foltz.
Yes.
Vice Foltz,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
for Warren,
Yes.
for Stroya,
Yes.
for Fonte,
Yes.
and Member Schroeder,
Abstain.
6 for 1 abstention.
Okay. Thank you very much. Motion approved. Ben, I am on a phone here, so can you put me into the breakout room?
Yes, it should still let you in a breakout room.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to open all the rooms for everyone watching on live stream. The stream is going to buffer till we return.